I'm Holly Berquist.
I'm McKenna Burhans.
I'm Taylor Hess.
Levi Ortiz.
Hunter Stewart. Alright, so the movie we chose for this project was the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, created in 2014 by Marvel Studios. The overall story of the movie begins with Peter Quill, with Star-Lord, trying to steal an orb from a desolate planet, and narrowly escapes as he's hunted down by a group under the control of Ronan the Accuser, who is the bad guy. He's looking for the orb too because apparently it holds one of the most powerful objects in the universe, known as the Infinity Stone. Peter tries to sell it but is told off, and then encounters a secret assassin sent by Ronan, whose name is Gamora. And there is also Rocket Raccoon and Groot, the living tree, that find a bounty on Peter, so they try to take him in. Eventually they all get into a fight and then are sent to prison where they meet Drax the Destroyer. Eventually the Guardians break out of the prison and they go try to sell the orb on a planet called Nowhere, where Drax has a vendetta against Ronan for killing his family and calls him to kill him, but obviously they're not prepared and get beaten. After everyone is beaten and defeated, they all come back together to form a plan, and then they're able to defeat Ronan the Accuser, making them the Guardians of the Galaxy.
So to relate this topic, from class we chose to discuss friendship, and friendship is a voluntary interpersonal relationship characterized by intimacy and liking. To maintain friendships, there are friendship rules that are general principles that prescribe appropriate communication and behavior within friendship relationships. These rules are important in friendships because they can make a difference in whether you have a happy or unhappy relationship. And then we will discuss each of the friendship rules with examples from the movie.
So the first friendship rule is show support. You should provide emotional support and offer assistance in times of need without having to be asked. You should support their decisions, even if it's one you wouldn't make yourself. In my life, my parents have these good family friends, and each of us, our kids are around the same age, and so living similar lives but parenting in different styles can be challenging for friendships. Just like making those different decisions and supporting them even if you wouldn't make them yourself. For example, a family friend of mine has a daughter that's the same age as my sister, and the way we live our high school lives was a lot different. Wanting to be in sports or not wanting to be in sports, and the way that they act with those. Just supporting your friends and showing that you're there and agree with their decisions even if you don't agree is important and is for the best of your friendship. In the movie, they show each character gives each other support, knowing that their lives are different and their upbringings were different, to come together to be the Guardians of the Galaxy. They have different extra long-term goals, values, and ways of showing support, such as the support shown between Rocket and Groot. Even if all Groot says is, "I am Groot," it's different in his expressions, showing the support for Rocket. And as Rocket makes irrational decisions, it helps his confidence and well-being and happiness to know that at least one person, being Groot, his friend, is going to sit there saying, "I am Groot," showing the support even without saying it. So that overall helps their happiness together and their friendship grow. And it goes for all the characters in small instances of showing support. Even all of them have had to make irrational decisions, and they still help one another at the end.
So for number 2, that would be seeking support from your friends, from you personally. So disclosing emotional burdens to your friends, telling them when you have a personal problem that is too much for you to bear, things of that nature. In Guardians of the Galaxy, they go through a lot of horrific adversity. They are constantly going through mental torture, their friends are getting hurt, people are passing away, and I think that human beings need that connection. They need to find solace in other human beings, and especially in this movie, if it was just one of them dealing with all this and hiding it and keeping it inside, they would not be successful in everything that they did. It's the fact that they can find solace in each other. It's the fact that they can have this sort of shared suffering so that their friendship can be stronger, and that they can get through these horrific events by having their friends around them and they're telling their friends what's going on in their mind. So, for example, that was Peter Quill lost his mother before the start of the movie, and we find that out. And Groot also, towards the end, seemingly sacrifices himself. So they have to go through, for example, these horrible things, but they have each other because they can seek support from another one. So in my life, sharing my experience with my friends is probably the best part of having friends. I think we often remember times, even high school friends, we remember times like, remember when we thought that we weren't going to make it through that horrible rumor that somebody said about us, or remember when we thought, oh, we're never going to get over this, our reputation is ruined forever, we're terrible people. And then we can look back on it almost 2 years out, 3 years out, and say, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, because I decided to tell you what was going on, and I told you what the truth was, and you had my back. And I was able to share the burden with you, and I didn't have to suffer alone. So through that, I think we build the deeper, more vulnerable connections in our friendships, because we're able to share such personal sufferings with each other, or even happiness, things that we don't want to share with everybody, but we're able to share with our friends, I think, is a big part of connecting with other human beings. Damn.
Just do it now. Just do it now.
So the third one is respecting privacy. Recognizing restrictive boundaries for sharing personal information. Avoid pushing friends to share information that is personal or they don't want to share.
Keep confidence. That's building trust, having trust, where friends can share the personal information and that's able to be kept confidential, and they don't betray their trust by sharing that information with others. A big part in keeping confidence with your friends is the ability to build that trust among each other, and there are many ways to do that. There are many moments in the film where they do just that. For instance, the whole breakout sequence from prison, Rocket is telling the gang to retrieve various items that are needed for their escape, and for the most part, they all listen and bring Rocket his stuff. So that builds trust because they listened and did what he asked. Another example would be when Gamora's ship gets blown up in space, and Peter leaves his own ship and almost sacrifices his life to make sure that she lives. They eventually both get rescued, but I'm sure this selfless act built trust among the both of them. And just a few moments after that scene, Drax, Groot, and Rocket believe that Peter and Gamora are kidnapped and in trouble, so they're willing to blow the ship up that they're on if they aren't turned over. So I'm sure that they all have this trust where they can all basically trust each other with their own lives, like literally. So yeah, that's about it.
Yep. So just kidding. So for the next one is respecting privacy, which is recognizing boundaries that other people set, respecting people's wishes, and not pushing them to tell you something that they don't feel comfortable with sharing. In this movie, many personal matters are happening, are discussed, and are brought to the surface. It's clear that in certain parts, characters like Peter Quill and Gamora have set personal boundaries and sometimes even feel uncomfortable with certain actions, and they are sure to tell each other to talk about it. Accepting these boundaries and trying really hard not to overstep them is a huge step in a friendship, to build trust, to gain mutual respect, things of that nature. No one wants to be pressured into telling their friend something really, really private, or just something that you don't want to share. It doesn't even have to be private. And especially things that can be raw, things that are emotional, things that affect you in really great ways. And it just tells you that your friend sometimes can't be trusted, and that's a really hard thing to grapple with. So this reminds me of the many times in my life that when I had someone very close to me pass away, all the questions that I got asked were, how did he die? And that was just so wildly inappropriate. It felt like the death was just the hot gossip of the day, and nobody really cared about respecting the death in my life, my privacy, someone who has passed away, their privacy. So I think that's a really big example of what happens when you don't respect people's privacy. It can even break friendships. It can make you come off as cold and inappropriate and just a really bad friend when things like that happen.
Okay, so the next friendship rule is defending your friends. Defending your friends is having your friends back, and friends count on you to stand up for them, defending them when they are being attacked. Throughout this whole movie, we saw many different instances where they would defend each other, and they were trying to defend the orbs and themselves from Ronan. They go through many enduring challenges with the bad guys, and each one of them must play their part to achieve the end goal. A scene with an example of this is where Nebula is degrading Gamora and calling her names and just disregarding her. Drax uses a weapon to attack Nebula and take her out, and after he takes her out, Drax says, "Nobody talks to my friends like that." This moment from the movie shows how much they actually do care for each other and how they value their friendship and that they are on each other's sides. While this movie is discussing physically defending their friends from getting hurt and achieving the orb, we can look at the theme of defensiveness in our everyday lives, whether you're just defending your friends from rumors, physically, mentally, or emotionally.
Now, avoiding public criticism. That's when you're having a disagreement or disapproving of behaviors. You want to avoid doing that publicly because it'll hurt the friendship. You also want to avoid questioning a friend's loyalty in front of other friends or people. The Guardians of the Galaxy are a misfit group for bandits, convicts, and assassins. So they're not perfect in any way. For instance, they don't follow this rule of friendship, where they avoid public criticism. For example, Rocket and Drax were at a bar and getting drunk, and eventually they got a little too harsh towards each other. And then they start to get physical, where Rocket eventually pulls out a gun and starts yelling about how Drax and the rest of the group as well have been treating him. He says that he's been called a vermin, a rodent, and that everyone's laughing at him. And he thinks that Drax sees him as a stupid thing. And this is all taking place in some bar with a whole crowd of people watching them, as Peter, Gamora, and Groot try to calm them down and everything. And then Rocket makes some comment about after their job is done, he's just going to kill them all anyway. And then Peter yells at them, yells at the Guardians because he's tired of them always threatening one another constantly. Now, this usually doesn't get this intense in real life, hopefully. But for instance, with my friend group, when my friend does something I disapprove of or disagree with, I immediately get a little passive aggressive sometimes, and it becomes pretty clear that I'm annoyed and frustrated. And I know that it's not exactly keeping the conflict private, but it's at least better than yelling or getting to issue around others.
Okay, so the next friendship rule is making your friends happy. And that's pretty self-explanatory, just making your friends feel good when you're around them, practicing positivity, communicating cheerfully, doing favors for them, or buying them, or making them gifts. So in the movie, there are many different challenges that they must overcome. The dangerous steps that they are taking to reach their goal can be fatal and negatively impact themselves. However, finding a group of people that make it more enjoyable and finding the positives and happiness throughout it is important. The quality of making your friends happy is an extremely important thing to do. So an example of this friendship rule found in Guardians of the Galaxy, I chose to talk about when the Guardians are battling against Ronan, and Peter Quill creates a plan. His plan is to challenge Ronan to a dance-off, which creates an amusing moment. While the overall point of this was to distract Ronan from what they were trying to do and take him down, it showcases that Peter Quill uses humor to lighten the mood and make his friends happy, even in a stressful situation. Whether or not you are making your friends feel good while around them can affect friendships. I think this just goes for anywhere in a friendship. Making sure that your friends are happy can make you happy, so doing little things for them and putting them first sometimes can really impact a friendship.
The next one is manage jealousy. Your friends will have other friends, and you must accept that. Your friend has other good friends as well, and be able to handle the jealousy that you feel. Also, with jealousy, I think it adds into the part of being jealous of each other in aspects of your life. In Guardians of the Galaxy, there are a few friendship dynamics that have jealousy. One that sticks out to me is the jealousy between Peter Quill and Rocket. They are two very different types of characters, but still have the same strive in many instances, and they will argue over different ways to fight or have a plan. These rationales can stem from the jealousy of one another and the love that they also have for each other. In the movie, they both want to be the leader. They both want to have the plan, make the plan, and this can stray from jealousy of one getting to do the plan or from the other friends choosing one of the plans over each other. And that can create some jealousy of which friends like which person better, and trying to manage that jealousy is going to help the overall friendship. In my personal experience growing up in elementary school, I had a close friend of mine that had jealous tendencies. She would make it very clear that I couldn't have any other best friends because no one was as good as her. This caused a lot of drama and led to fights between other friends. Like in this example, the fights Rocket and Peter have caused other problems for the rest of the group of their jealousy of one another and each other's connections can cause separation and distancing with them, which makes a problem for everybody else.
Second to the last one is shared humor. Successful friends spend a good amount of their time joking with and teasing each other in affectionate ways. Having a similar sense of humor is a crucial aspect. So since we picked the very first movie, that's when they were kind of just first meeting each other. So they really didn't share humor. But what they did share is a very similar backgrounds where all of them have lost someone they love. And we were told the backgrounds of each member, starting with Peter losing his mother at a young age, like Taylor mentioned, and the next is Gamora losing her home planet, and Drax losing his family. And while Groot and Rocket have lost their friends in the past as well, knowing this, we understand how everyone can connect to each other on an emotional level. The last one is maintain equity. And like I said before, because they were meeting each other for the very first time, they were still like fighting a lot. And but at the very end, when they're planning to defeat the villain Ronan, each of them had a part. Rocket led a team of flying ships to make way for Peter to enter the ship where they're talking ship they were talking about invading. Gamora then goes to dismantle a power source for the ship, and lastly Peter goes for the villain. And without like each member doing their part, then they wouldn't be able to take down the villain. And reflecting back to my own experiences, there have been times where I felt that the maintenance of equity was not met by the people I considered friends, and it did not feel well for me. And for me, I would always try to reciprocate the same energy back to them. For an instance, when I would ask my friends to take me to the airport, I would pay for their gas, or maybe when I come back from my trip, I would take them out to eat, and I'd pay for the meal. So something that simple can strengthen and maintain friendships.
In conclusion, in the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, there are many different friendship issues and problems that occur, and in the end, they are all resolved. Throughout our discussion of different examples found in the movie and our personal lives, the 10 friendship rules can be applied to many different aspects.